Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Every Calorie Counts podcast. Oh my God. Today we have a special guest. We have Lianna McCall. We did have her husband, fuck me, Elias on a few weeks
Elias.
ago. Elias?
Elias.
Elias! I can't never get
The-
it right. A
My
few
my
weeks
dyslexia
ago.
is starting to rub off on you.
Literally. We had him on a few weeks ago, so we're just gonna do the entire McCall family. Next week we'll have Kane on here, and it'll be a great time. We'll get Beamer. Okay, but let's get started, Liana. Um, go into how you started bodybuilding. I know you started in figure, now you're wellness, and we're gonna get into all of that fun stuff. But hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. So I started bodybuilding in 2015. I did my first show. Wellness did not exist at the time, so it was, and actually Women's Physique had just came out, I think, or it was like starting to kind of
Yeah,
grow.
first
Um,
couple years, yeah.
yeah, and I liked Dana Lynn Bailey's look a lot, but I was kind of like, I'm probably never gonna be that big. So I picked figure to start out in. Um, I
Well, can I ask real
liked
quickly? I interrupt like a motherfucker too, so I'm sorry.
it's
I
okay.
apologize ahead of time. But what kind of influenced you in the direction of bodybuilding?
So I was kind of like a little lost cause in college. I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. Um, I actually graduated high school with my associate's degree, and
Wait a
I
second, wait a
Know that?
second, wait a second, wait a second.
I didn't know
You
that.
graduated high school with your associate's
yeah,
degree?
I was one of
Okay,
like
wait, can we
four
can,
kids.
can we pause real quick? I'm getting to know Liana today too for everybody. But wait, so I want to obviously get into that. But now so 2015, you said are you in college or you're
Yeah,
graduating high
I
school?
was I was in college in 2015.
So
I
how old are
graduated.
you?
I'm aging myself. I graduated high school in 2013.
So wait, so now how old are you? Because I don't do math.
I'm 29.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but you're a baby. I graduated high school 10 years before you, dude. Okay. So it's not like
That's crazy.
let's not throw it around. Yeah, exactly. But so now we graduated high school in 2013. You graduated high school with associate's degree. How does that happen?
So in Florida, where I grew up, they don't make it as easy as it was then. Now, like, it's really hard if you want to do that now. They kind of made it a lot harder, but I basically got my associate's degree for free in high school. um
Huh.
they let you, so if you take a college, I hated high school, so I was like, I just want to get out. And if you take a college English class, it counts for a credit for your high school English credit. So I didn't have to like take my high school English credit if I took a college English credit. So
Right.
I made all of these for like 2 years count for my high school credits. It was really hard to like work it like that because you had to make sure not only are you completing all these credits for high school, but you're completing them for college too. And I was one of like four kids in my class that did it. My cousin actually did it as well, and that's kind of, my mom was like, "Oh, well, you should do this too." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, it's free. Like,
Mhm.
it'll get me. I can actually go to university instead of like staying here for community college and then going after." So I did
So
that,
then
but
did you do like
Where'd you?
2 years of
Sorry.
college after to get a bachelor's?
so I sucked and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no clue what my major was. So that's the downfall of it. Right when you get out of high school, you have to pick what major you want to go
Yeah, because
into.
at that point, it's like then things get specialized because
Yeah.
you're associates.
And you're not just like doing general education anymore. So I was at, I had like randomly I applied to like four different colleges and I got accepted to them, but I picked my college and I was like, this one I'll apply for business and this one I'll apply for psychology and this one. And I was like, whatever, I'll pick one. And like whichever one I get accepted to, I'll just pick the major. And I was like UCF and business. So that's what I started in. And I suck at math. So I did like a year of straight math classes and it
Yeah.
was horrible and I hated it. And my mom was like, why don't you just pick something that you like to do or that you're interested in and like run from there? My dad was like, just get the piece of paper that says you have a degree. And there it is, hanging on my wall. I did it.
Nice. Wait,
Um,
where'd you grow up? I'll go backwards a little bit. Where'd you grow up in Florida?
I grew up a little bit north of Tampa and
Oh,
it's
okay.
45 minutes north of Tampa. And then I went to school in Orlando. So it's like 2 hours east of
Wait, where's 45 minutes north of Tampa?
It's
Exactly.
called Spring Hill, Brooksville. It's in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
It's very small
Yeah.
town.
My brother actually lives up in like Pensacola. I lived in St. Augustine for a little while, so I was like,
Okay.
whatever, maybe like an hour
That's
and a
like
half from Tampa. Or whatever.
4 hours north, 3 hours north.
What is Pensacola is?
Pensacola's in the Panhandle, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's all the way up in
Yeah.
the Panhandle. I realized it was that far north.
Yeah. That's probably
Yeah.
actually
All right.
further, probably like 6.
Yeah.
Florida's big.
Florida's that state, dude, where it's like it's just like it goes on for forever and ever
Yeah.
and ever. But all right, so now you're going to school for business and you took a year straight of math, which was awful, and now you're picking
Yeah.
something that you like.
So I switched majors to sports exercise science. And then I was like, well, I'll find it. I was working at a restaurant and then a bar while I was doing that major and like kind of ruining my life. And then I switched to sports exercise science and I was like, well, let me get a job like in the field. So I went and begged this manager of LA Fitness to like hire me with zero experience to start working on the personal training department. So he hired me and I was selling personal training without a personal training certification. So while I was doing that, I got my PT cert and then I was in the sports exercise program at UCF and I worked at a few different gyms while I was in college too and kind of like tried to move up because LA Fitness wasn't it at the time or whatever. But I liked it and it kind of gave me a lot of experience and I've been selling. That's all I've really done my whole life is like sell personal training. So,
Yeah.
and like even now I do that still, even in my own business.
So 2015, you got into bodybuilding and you said you were
Yeah.
in college during that.
So that was around the time when I started working at that gym. This guy that I was friends with kind of coached me for free. This was before like Instagram was really big with bodybuilding, and I mean it was, but it wasn't like it is now. So like there was no like really, really good coaches out there. Like you kind of had to like know someone to have an in with a good coach. And this guy at the gym that I was friends with just coached me for free. He was like, I think you'll do really good. Like, I'll coach you into the show, blah, blah, blah. And then my ex-boyfriend like kind of took over the end of it and ended up finishing that prep for me. And that didn't work
Never a
out.
good thing.
So I ended
That's
up
never a
getting
good
a
thing
real
when boyfriends
coach.
get one.
What did you say, Tim?
So now I said it's never a good thing when boyfriends get involved.
No.
Oh yeah.
I'm dealing with that right now. But so well, wait. So now I'm confused though. What led to what? Was there bodybuilding or like like you're going to school and you hate math, right? I get that part.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh well, I'm gonna go do exercise science. What led to that interest to make exercise science something that you wanted to do?
I just kind of have like an obsessive personality. And if I'm going to be interested in something, I'm going to do all of the things that involve it.
Right, but
So,
I'm saying, how'd you get into lifting to begin with? Like, what drove you to the gym? Like, what made you want to be involved with that?
all right. I got into some trouble in college and I was basically stuck. I couldn't use my car. I was stuck in my apartment. And the only thing that was like interesting enough for me to do was to go to their little stupid apartment gym and like start working out. And an ex-boyfriend of mine had told me that I couldn't like, he was too busy for me to like train me and teach me these things. So I had a couple guy friends that would take me with them to Planet Fitness and they taught me how to like exercise and work out and like train. And they weren't like the typical Planet Fitness people. Like they actually trained hard. They just went there because it was cheaper, but they bring me on their free little pass and that got me out of the shitty apartment gym and they like taught me how to train. And that's when I like got into it and I realized like that this was something that I enjoyed doing and I like the competitiveness of bodybuilding. So I wanted something that would like push it a little farther and take me further and give me like a goal to work towards. And I had no clue what I was getting myself into. Like, but at the point when I started, I was like, well, I got to finish this now. Like, I literally had no clue what I was getting into with bodybuilding. I was like, oh, well, this looks fun and cool. And like, I didn't like, there wasn't all these posts on Instagram, like, oh, this is expensive and this is hard. And it was just like, this looks fun and it looks cool. Like, I want to try doing it. And
Yeah.
at that
So
point, I was like, hooked.
did your boyfriend compete at the time, or did any of the guys that you're working out with compete, or was it something kind of that you
No.
found on your own? So you just
My
kind of stumbled on it?
my ex-boyfriend at the time had his ex-girlfriend was a coach and like coached a bunch of competitors, and she was really into it, but he'd never competed. He just knew a bunch about it.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
yeah.
I
So
think there's
now,
also like a little theme though. Like you do seem, and this is because I also just know you very well, but like you are just a high achiever. So it's like you graduated from high school with your associates, you get into fitness, you're like, now I need to do this at the nth
Yeah.
degree, you know? So I'm like not surprised that it kind of fell that way.
I did gymnastics when I was a kid, and I
Yeah,
really
I
liked
didn't know that. Me too.
a lot of the like sports that I did when I was growing up. I kind of like had to stop because of like some injuries that I had. Like I did track in high school too. And I had to stop that because I have like plantar fasciitis and like Osgood slaughters and
I had
shins.
Osgood Schlatters.
Trying to run with all that stuff is just like miserable. But I loved running. I just can't run
Mhm.
anymore.
Yeah.
um,
fasciitis
and
is gonna suck.
gymnastics was like so intensive at the time that like it was either I do gymnastics and take this really far, or I'm good at school. And I kind of like picked like put my time into school, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't feel and I could go to college.
So you're into Dana Lynn Bailey. You're
Yeah,
like,
she was
I'm
like
not gonna be
my
as big as her. I want to do figure.
OG inspiration. I
Yeah.
wish I could be as big as women's physique. If I could pick a division that I would like want to do, if I could look like that without making myself look bad, I would do
Mhm.
women's physique. Like I hate heels.
Well,
I like
correct me
just
if I'm wrong. Like, I feel like when she was competing, that's like the size of figure now.
yeah, for sure.
So
That's
I
it
feel like
was
it makes
like
sense.
attainable at that time.
Hmm.
But that's kind of how figure was. Um, when I was competing, when I started, Miss Olympia was Nicole Wilkins, and she won for multiple years in a row. But that's something that I would have, if she was still the look, I would have stayed in figure if that was
Yeah.
like the gold standard, because it was a lot smaller. And even like second, third, fourth place, they were all smaller
Yeah.
than they
Probably
are
the
now.
size
So
of bikini now.
yeah.
So yeah, first few shows, you're doing figure. I think you said your ex-boyfriend kind of took over the end of like your first prep or whatever. How was your first experience competing in the NPC?
It was good. I liked the show. I think I got third place. The girls that placed above me were just a lot older and had like a ton more muscle maturity. There was like 7, 8 girls in my class though, and I thought I did pretty good for my first show. Um, but yeah, that wasn't a good prep. Like it wasn't structured. I definitely wasn't lean enough.
Mhm.
My second show, I hired Nikki and AJ Sims, and I won an overall, and I was like shredded. Like
Yeah.
that's probably one of the leanest I've ever been. Um, so that year I won an overall. I think that was in March. That was 2016. And
Mhm.
then I did a warm-up show like 2, 3 weeks before nationals. And then my first national show was the nationals in Miami in 2016. And I got third place at that show.
Mhm.
Um,
So wait, hold
and
on. When you connected with the other coaches, I forget their names, but was that kind of that turning point for you of like, I really like this, I'm getting it. I
yeah,
like this is something I want to do. I want to turn pro.
I didn't even know what turning pro was. I didn't
Yeah.
like know what a national show was. They looked at me and they were like, you can take this really far. Like you could go to Olympia one day. And I was like, oh shit, like how do we do that? And they're like,
Hmm.
this is what your next steps are. Like you're going to nationals this year, you're doing this, like you're gonna get your pro card. And I was like, oh wow, that's a lot. Like, and I
Hmm.
even know what like turning pro was. I was just like, I want to compete. I want to like do this because it's fun. And so I just like went with it. So they kind of geared me and picked all my shows, and like I was
Nice.
like, okay, I just went with it.
Yeah.
But um 2016 nationals, I got third place, and the winner of my class took the overall.
Wow.
And then so I was like one place away, and because they still gave 2 pro cards out at that class at that show.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have wanted to win my pro card was second
For the
place.
second place, yeah.
So I have my own opinions about that.
Yeah, same. But you and I
So
agree.
you said you were as lean as you've ever been there. Do you feel like that hurt you at that time in figure, or was that something that kind of vaulted you up the rankings,
No,
so
I
to
was
speak?
really small. Like I think I was 107 pounds on stage. It was tiny. So me being that lean
That's
and
crazy.
having really good shape, like
It helped.
made me do very well.
Mhm.
That's all I had was my shape and my conditioning.
Conditioning, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I just remember there
that,
was that period in figure where it was kind of like weird. There was a very real period there where it was kind of like you mentioned Nicole Wilkins. Like you say Nicole Wilkins wasn't that big, which 100% relatively speaking, but she also
yeah,
wasn't as hard as they are now. Like now they are bigger, they are harder,
yeah.
definitively. You know what I mean? Basically, all figure is like bodybuilding with a very specific frame. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
With a tiny waist, a
It's
big
like
bubbly
the
quad. But
tiniest waist humanly
yeah,
possible.
that's it.
And
Yeah, it's
that's
genetics.
what I had. I had a really small or have had a really small waist, but I was tiny. I was really, really tiny. And I only did good because I had the good shape and the good conditioning. I took a year off after
Yeah, I was just gonna ask
2017
about
nationals.
that. So like, was that your first like really good off season, the one before you turned pro after that third place?
Well,
And
I
I would
didn't
just be
turn pro
curious
at
on
that
top of
show.
that. On top of that, when you answer this, I'm just curious how when you get that lean, how well did your body respond in terms of that off season and how long it took to recover? And like any hang ups there as far as getting that lean and kind of going to that level and then trying to grow outside of that?
Okay, so getting that lean hurt. That was like the first that nationals. I was way leaner than the overall I won earlier that year.
Mhm.
And they pushed me really hard for that, but I was I was really small. Like I look back at videos like before that show and I'm like, ew, that's like disgusting. Like I was a twig.
Mhm.
Um, but I didn't have a super structured off season after that. Again, like this was when I was still just getting into it and I was like, okay, I don't need a coach in my off season. I just need one for
Uh,
prep.
Mm.
So again, that was the ex-boyfriend that had coached me for my original show. And he kind of helped me in the off season and like we pulled my food up structured and I still ate bodybuilding food every day, but it wasn't like I'm going to have this phase of growth and like then pull
mhm.
back. And then it wasn't like structured like that. So I was just kind of like, I'm going to push food and I'm going to track it. And I'm just going to slowly increase food. But by the time I wanted to compete again in 2017, I did the exact same show. I did nationals in Miami again in 2017. And I just was like, this kind of, I put muscle on for sure, like a lot of it, but I wasn't in a good starting point to prep.
Mhm.
So I had put a decent amount of body fat on too, and ended up working with a different coach and blah blah blah. And it was mostly just because I was a broke college kid and needed something that I could afford. Um,
Yeah.
so that coach, I won't name names because that wasn't the best experience, but I did like working with
Oh
Nikki and
man,
AJ
I
that
want to know.
they kind of set the tone for me mentally and what to expect of competing. That's kind of where I learned how to be a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
They were very like to the T, like you're not using any condiments like 6 7 weeks out from a show, like hardcore, no energy drinks, no artificial sweeteners, no
Sure.
stevia, no nothing. Like
Bless you.
and I was like, if I have to eat shit off the ground, I will eat shit off the ground to get where I want to be. And that's kind of what instilled the like bodybuilder mindset into me. But their mentality process that they gave me towards bodybuilding was what made me the bodybuilder that I am.
It's
And
crazy
there's,
how sometimes that works for them, and like you'll hear people like you that use that as like 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 you're kind of saying like it helped develop you and mold you into
yeah,
the bodybuilder that you became. But then on the other side of that, you see a lot of big talented names walk away from that mindset that he has, and like that, how hard he pushes people because it's just
yeah.
not something that is maybe sustainable for some people, most certainly not enjoyable. Not that we do it for that level of enjoyment, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's weird how that works for some people and how for some people it's just like absolutely not doing that.
I'll give that to them. That's one thing that they're really good at is like instilling that mentality into their athletes. Um, I just again, I was a broke college kid and couldn't afford to work with them at the time, so
Mhm.
that's
Right,
why I
yeah.
stopped working with them. But 2017 nationals, I placed the exact same as I did in 2016. And the winner of that show was from my class too. So I got third place and the winner of my
Wow.
class took the overall again. So I was like real close. And it was like, I'm supposed to be here. I know I'm really close to a pro card. Like, so it wasn't like, here, let me take a whole other year off. I was like, I want to get back on stage as soon as I can. So I did I did USA's in Vegas in 2018, and that's where I won my class, and then I got second overall. So I was
Ooh.
like real close to winning the overall there. And I'm sad. That's like one thing I really wish that I had a national title, but um that I loved how I came. That's still one of like my favorite figure looks is that show.
Who'd you work with at that time?
Her name's Natalie Kaczynski. She got me my
Okay.
pro card, and then I did Puerto Rico pro with her as well.
Mhm.
So
Nice.
that was 2018, and Puerto Rico I did in 2019. So
So now with all
taken
these preps, go ahead.
I should have taken longer off before I did my pro debut, but I got first call outs at my pro debut. There was like 2 or 3 Olympians in first call outs, and I got 6th place, and I got like a podium finish for my pro debut. So I got to stand up with, and I got an award, and I didn't think they were going to let me
That's
do that.
actually huge.
So they called my 6th place. Like I got to stand up with
Yeah.
the 6 of them and like take the picture, like, and that got put on
That's
the
awesome.
website or whatever. But that was like a big deal for me. And I was super excited about that.
Yeah, you should be.
So at that point though, do you look around and or do you have friends in the industry and everything? Like you realize like at that point it's pretty rare to have a female that's able to kind of get in that shape. I wouldn't say it's rare. I don't want to use the word rare, but most certainly not the common thing for a female to be able to prep year after year after year, be able to continually get that lean and continually put on muscle tissue, like progress with that level of like continued stress and just that level of leanness over and over and over again. Do you recognize that at all at that point, or even at this point now? Do you recognize like the ability to do that is something like innate? That's something it's like
And
it's
then,
more than mind over matter. Like it's actually like a genetic thing that you're able
yeah,
to
to
do that some
also
people
add to
aren't.
that, it seems like you had
I'm
a
just
very
curious.
linear,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you
process,
were
which is
obviously
like
able to
really
do it then too.
impressive. Like for example, me, I'm not a pro yet, but like, it's been up and down. Whereas for you, it was like, okay, first show, then took an overall, then nationals, third place, and pro card. So,
I think a lot of it stems from like the mindset part of it, and I think that's a really big thing. I mean, obviously there's like genetics and all of these things, like do you have what it takes to do it? But a lot of it attests is like, do you believe you can do this? And if so, are you going to tell yourself that you can? And if you tell yourself you can, then you can. You just need to take all the steps that you need to get where you know that you can be. And I think I saw that in Elias a ton. And anytime he like doubted himself, I was like, no, like, don't tell yourself you can't do this. Like, you tell yourself, I'm going to do this and nothing's going to stand in my way to do this. And you kind of have to like believe in yourself so much so that you make it happen. And like, there's nothing that's going to derail you from that. But that's another thing that like, a friend of mine, her name is Danny Reardon. She doesn't compete anymore.
I know, Danny.
She was coached by Nikki and AJ Sims as well. She got second place at Olympia in women's physique, and she was kind of another one of my like big inspirations. She was a good friend of mine in college. She lived in Orlando. She kind of her like whole mindset that she had when she was competing was what inspired me to like make it something that I really, really loved and wanted to do. And like, she was all about like believing in yourself and like manifesting things and like making it become a reality by like thinking things into existence, basically. So I know
Why do
some
I remember
have like,
Danny as fitness?
no, she had some crazy, like good routines though, to where like, if you saw her routine, you might've thought it was
Oh,
fitness.
maybe.
And she was same thing. She was a little bit on the smaller side. And she was super shredded every time she got on stage. So that like women's physique look that was smaller and leaner, she was able to attain that with the better conditioning.
yeah.
But she was like another one of my inspirations.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that is like very powerful because the thought is as powerful as an action, honestly. And that's what I believe. But so you did Puerto Rico Pro. You got 6th, you said there. And then what was your second pro show?
My second
And
pro
how
show,
far out was it from that first?
yeah, I waited a while. I did.
Okay.
So
I
you switched
waited.
coaches too. I want to hear about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I switched coaches, but this is a weird thing. The guy that owned the gym that I was working at had promised to prep me for a show in 2020. Again, I'm like jumping into shows way too soon. I had put on a ton of body fat after the show, after my pro debut. A lot of that was just from moving, life changes, not sleeping, and like my hormones got all out of whack from not sleeping and from putting on so much weight all at once. I like basically gave myself an eating disorder after that show for a good 6, 7 months. I know Marina and I have talked about that. It was super toxic. Like,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of it stemmed from not sleeping because the gym I was working at, I was getting up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was closing the gym at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And like, I wasn't sleeping because I'd have to go to the grocery store after that and then cook food and like be a bodybuilder still. I had no time. I was getting like 4 hours of sleep and trying to meal prep and do all these things and train still. And it just it wasn't a time schedule that lined up, but I was like binging food and I'd go out and like binge eat at restaurants and it was really bad. I think I put like, this is disgusting. I want to say I put like 40 or 50 pounds on probably in like
Delicious.
3 months. It was gross.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, I felt like when you, after you compete, if you eat a lot of food, you feel like your skin's stretching. I felt that all the
Yeah.
time. Gross.
Oh,
But that was also the best training environment that I'd ever had. So I was like, I was pushing all this food, not in a good way, but I was actually putting muscle tissue on, like a lot of it, because it was like training as hard as I ever had in my entire life. And I was training with like big bodybuilder guys that were like pushing me until I was like basically in tears when I was training.
Yeah.
So that was the best training environment I've ever had. And I loved that. And I learned a lot while I was at MI42. That's kind of what got me into like exercise execution and like just like all the nitpicky details of training and like
What year was this? You were at MI40?
this was 2019 to into 2020. So I was there for like a year and a half almost. So we
But
were
that was more like CJ was there. Well, no, CJ wasn't there, was he? They had left and all. Like that was when it was transitioning, right?
yeah, there's different phases of people that have worked at that
Yeah,
gym.
that's what I
So
mean. I think that was like the initial transition, though, from like I don't know the really like hardcore sciencey
when
guys that were there before.
Joe Bennett wasn't
Yeah,
there. So that was
right. He
when,
had left. Cass had
yeah.
left, and then it was
I was there when, I don't know if you know who Drew Donaldson or
yeah,
Adam
yeah.
Brammer, they were
Mhm.
there. And then Chris Williams, who also owns a New X, he kind of got me into all of
yeah. I
that.
was gonna ask, is that when you got into the new
Yeah.
X and everything? Yeah.
So he actually had a newbie when we were there, and I was so interested in it. I would like follow him around, I would shadow him, and he'd like teach me all of this stuff about it. And like it got to the point where he'd be like, okay, you can go, because he'd keep it at the gym because it wasn't actually his, the newbie. Like Ben, the owner of the gym, owned the machine and he'd leave it at the gym. So he was like, you can go use it, just like don't mess it up. Like if you want to use it, like use it on someone else or whatever. So he taught me all this stuff and I was so grateful that he let me like be his little shadow. And he was like, you'd be really good at this. Like you have an eye for it. And like he got me into that. But Ben, the owner of the gym, ended up telling me that he'd prep me for a show in 2020 and I wasn't ready. And I don't think anything any coach could have done could have got me ready for a show in 2020 just because I'd come off of that, like gaining all this weight and my metabolism was like screwed. So I had picked a show to do in April. And again, remember, I did this show in May of 2019. That was Puerto Rico Pro. And I wanted to do a show in April of 2020 after I put like 40 pounds of
Yeah,
body
just
fat.
like 11
So
months after.
I'm delusional at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm prepping and I pulled down to like 135, I think. Like that was probably a good starting point for a prep, honestly.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like 5 weeks out, but I was doing 2 hours of cardio and eating 900 calories to like.
But did he? So at any point did the coach stop? Like, because you're
No,
obviously
at that point, this wasn't Ben. Ben, like, I was 8 weeks out and I was like, this ain't 8 weeks out. So I had a couple of the guys at the gym. I was like, we need to take this further. Like, someone needs to help me. This isn't 8 weeks out.
Oh my
So I was
God.
like, I need to
Right.
crash diet myself to do the show. And it was stupid. But the show got canceled. I never ended up doing the show.
Oh yeah, it was
Okay.
2020.
Lord, because I am so glad I don't have pictures of myself, like, because that would have been a train wreck. I'm so happy that that show got canceled. I didn't do that show. But at that point, I was like, my metabolism's messed up. And sorry, Elias is getting ready for a job interview and he's got like a nice shirt on and a tie, and I've never seen him. Yeah, I have to help him with it. It's really cute. I've never seen him in a tie.
Where is he?
He's over here.
You want to like put the shirt? You see how the shirt?
Uh-huh. Yeah, unbutton it.
You can't.
What do you mean?
I feel like we're interrupting something.
well, if you have to tie his ties, tell him it's definitely getting clipped for Instagram.
I'm not ready yet.
Literally.
I'm not. You hear him? I'm not ready yet.
I'm not ready.
You can.
Those are button.
Yeah, your fingers just can't get in there to unbutton it. I was gonna tell you this might happen.
It's all right. This is definitely. Tell him it's definitely
fans will
on
love it.
Instagram now.
I had to
Yeah.
tie his tie last night for him.
That's your job.
I have no idea how to tie a tie.
Yeah.
I
He has
wouldn't
his
know.
interview on Zoom,
Aw,
so he doesn't have to wear pants for this one.
I'm wearing
perfect.
Oh, fantastic!
Can you imagine if he asked me to stand up and I'm just not wearing pants?
Yeah, right. Like, dude, stand up. We want to see if your pants match your shirt.
Like, we want to see what kind of style you got.
Now you have to show. You have to show too.
I don't even have a belt on or anything.
It's okay.
There you go. Hold up.
Well, then you gotta do. Oh, this doesn't fit.
It doesn't.
You can't button the.
No.
Oh no. Oh no.
Make it fit.
You're gonna show.
But you could probably hide it with the tie, can't you?
Yeah.
Oh, this is like the Marine Corps thing, the
Yeah,
uniform. Oh, this is bad. You better thank the sweet Lord you don't have to wear this every day.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, there we go. We got
That's
it.
not that bad. It's just hard to button.
We're almost there.
It's not that bad. I just can't swallow.
Oh, I'm so glad I don't have to wear
Oh.
this every day.
I made it too short. We're gonna tuck this in.
Sorry.
Don't let that fall. You have to show that.
Yeah, give us a 180.
I don't even have the jacket on or the belt or anything.
It's
yet.
all right. Did I do it?
Oh,
Just look at-
I gotta put everything on.
He's a big boy.
Yeah.
First day of
Thank you.
school. I love it. Good luck.
He was just in that. I was like, oh,
So cute. All right. So where were we?
minor distraction. So I'm glad I didn't do that show. And then at that point, I was like, all right, I'm eating 900 calories and doing 2 hours of cardio. Like, I need to reverse off of this, or else I'm going to end up in the same position I was in before. So I had seen Cam on Instagram, and this is when Cam had like no clients. He had probably like 10 people that were like competitors at the time.
Mhm.
And I talked to him, I messaged him on Instagram, like, hey, this is where I'm at with things. And I was really hesitant at this point. Like, Ben kind of just like fucked off my prep and didn't really like, wasn't very attentive.
You guys too busy.
And I really just felt bad for leaving Natalie, because Ben had like promised me all of these things to like, Natalie was a really good coach and I shouldn't have left her. Ben had just told me I'll work with you in person, and like I'm here at the gym, and like I'll get you where you need to be. And Ben's really smart, and like I gave him a chance, and he doesn't really prep people, so it wasn't like, oh, he has this like whole
Mhm.
list of people he's worked with. It was like, I'm taking a chance, and I took a chance, and I shouldn't have done that. I learned a lot from him, but I shouldn't have had him prep me. But yeah, I talked to Cam, and Cam spent probably 3 or 4 hours on the phone with me over the course of a week, trying to like convince me to work with him. And
Really?
he didn't have like any athletes at the time that were like good, and like I was a pro already, and I think he wanted to work with me because I was a pro. And he showed me his spreadsheets that he had, and I was like, dude, I'm sold. Like, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
your OCD.
Okay, so he did have the spreadsheets.
He had the
Back
spreadsheet at the time. It wasn't what it is
He said he
now.
started with that. That's what he started
Um,
with, basically. He just
Yeah,
evolved it.
he didn't actually build that out. He worked with this guy at the time that like built it, that he let him take it and like whatever. But Cam's made that spreadsheet his own over the years and like added a ton of different things to it. And like especially his like peaking spreadsheet, that's all his. Like he did that all himself and he knows all about it and everything. But yeah, he showed me that and I was like, I'm sold. Again, I was like broke at the time, so he actually like cut me a deal. It was like, I want to work with you, like whatever you can afford, pay me that until you can like afford to pay me the whole thing and this and that. And then he was like, you need to like fix your metabolism and like take the time and like grow, and then we'll put you on stage. And I was like really reluctant. I was like, okay, like I trust you, like I'll do this. And I competed the end of 2021 in like October. So I probably should have even taken more time than that. Like I was still small at this other show that I did. But again, figure just keeps growing.
I was going
And
to say at that point, it was kind of like you probably
yeah,
thought at that
Chasing.
point that it was at like the pinnacle of what it could be. And then
yeah,
from 21 to now, it's even gotten fucking crazier.
Yeah.
so I did that show with Cam. We took like an off season. Did like a couple growth phases with him and everything. That's probably it's not the easiest, but that's the smoothest contest prep that I've ever had. But I did have a parasite when I was competing in that. So in January of 2021, started having all these like gut dysbiosis problems. And I was going to compete that year. So I was like, I need to get rid of this. Like, what's going on? That was the start of like a 2-year long hiatus of fixing my gut problems. So I thought I had fixed it. I had got a GI map done. I took a
You originally
single,
got a GI map done when your gut started to bother you?
yeah, I worked with this girl. I worked with like 4 different people to fix my gut.
Really?
And this girl ran the GI map. She was like, you have Giardia. Take this antibiotic. That's the only way to get rid of it. So I took that antibiotic and all of my symptoms went away. So I was like, I don't
Yeah,
feel a need
temporarily.
to,
And then it came right back.
I don't feel a need to like go get this retested. I don't feel bad. Like nothing's going on. So I finished the contest prep. Because it took me like months from.
Oh, wait. Hold on. I'm sorry. So you got a GI map done while you were in prep?
I hadn't been prepping. So the symptoms started in January, and then in like June, I think, was when I got the GI map in May, and then June I figured out what it was, took the antibiotic in June, and then we finished my prep. So it was a long contest prep, and June, and remember I competed in October, so it's a long time period.
Okay. I got you.
Symptoms
Okay.
went away in June. I had nothing was going on. I didn't feel bad. And then right after I get off stage, all of these symptoms start coming back, like immediately after.
So you probably were suppressing it as far as like, because
Yeah.
obviously you're in prep, so food was a little bit
Yeah.
lower, like the environment for that parasite was so much lower. And then you took an antibiotic, which I'm sure probably started to kill it off. The problem with
Yeah.
parasites, though, is that they also work within like cycles. Like it's crazy how they work, the parasites, because they can literally be like, you'll have more parasites, so they'll start like a new cycle in terms of their life cycle when it's a full moon. Like shit, like it's like they're
really?
like it's like real scary shit. It's like you could take an antibiotic, but if it's not during the right course of the life cycle of that particular parasite, you'll take it. It might reduce symptoms for a little while, but it'll come back even faster. But what most likely happened in that scenario is probably that you took it, you probably did whatever, kill it, but not all of it. And then it lays eggs, more parasites come. And then after the show, you create the environment because you're feeding. And then boom, you got all the fucking issues come back tenfold.
So after I competed, we were pulling my food up and I wasn't gaining any weight. I actually competed at 125. I think I got down to 117. So all of this food that Cam's feeding me after the show is just like going straight through me. Like it was
Yeah.
disgusting. It was that after I competed was the worst symptoms I've ever had. I was like, and I was an emotional wreck too, you know, like you have all these gut
Yeah, of
symptoms,
course.
like you feel like crap. I didn't want to leave the house. So like I felt
Yeah.
horrible and I kept
And
losing
you're
weight.
not, yeah, you're not getting any nutrients out of your food. So
No.
you're probably all fucking malnourished and just shitty,
Yeah.
like fatigue, all that shit on top of it.
Imagine like trying to pump nutrients and like food into your body after a show and you like can't absorb anything. It was
Yeah.
Yeah,
horrible.
it's got to be the worst.
So I kept losing weight and I went through a whole like kill regrowth phase thing with Mark Tomanek, and that helped a little bit, but he tried to do it like the natural way. And my symptoms were still there. And then I ended up working with another guy that was in basically there's a website called Planet Naturopath, and you can
Yeah.
order the GI map
used
on
it for
there
a
like
long
by
time.
yourself. The guy
Mhm.
that works for that company or owns that company, he helped me too. And again, like none of these people are bad. They just like
They
did
didn't
what
quite
they
get the
did
job
didn't
done.
work.
When you have a parasite, especially if you're going to go over the counter shit, like you're talking legitimately, this is not an exaggeration whatsoever. $500 a month worth of supplements for the next 12 weeks, like
Yeah, and I did
legitimately.
that 4 different times with
Oh,
4
you
different.
did. They did. They murdered it like that, where it was like you said,
Yeah.
like $500. Okay,
Yeah, I was
but
spending
still,
so much money on over the counter like natural supplements to like kill all of this off. I did that with Mark Tomanek. I did that with the guy from Planet Naturopath. His name is Michael. He helped a lot too. Again, the parasite was gone. I forget. I had like 4 or 5 different GI maps pulled. Again, that's like a small car payment in itself to like
yeah.
get a GI map done. And retesting it's not cheap. So the parasite was gone. But I also had H. pylori, I had SIBO, I had all of these other like myriad of issues from um that the parasite had caused, and like leaky gut. It was so much, and I was in pain like all the time. It was sucked. So what's his name? Matt Cusano with Rise
Mhm.
HRT
Nice.
is the
Yeah.
one that fixed everything in the end. So he looked at my GI map and he was like, all right, we're going to do this kind of like a hybrid way. So I took a antibiotic called rifaximin. It's a very expensive prescription if you get it in the US, but he prescribed it from this like other pharmacy and I didn't end up paying a ton of money for it. So we used
So
that.
just so people know, I had a client on rifaximin, and it was for 7 days, $1,300 for
Oh,
7 day
wow.
cycle of rifaximin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I paid like
1,300.
$80, I think. So if you need rifaximin, Rise is where you get it.
Yeah. God
They
bless.
get it from a different pharmacy, I think. But I took that. I want to say it was like $80, so that's how much of a difference it was. I was like, I'm not paying $1,300 for that. But I took that, and then again another like large plethora of natural supplements that I can't even list off. But again, it was a small carb payment of supplements. So that worked. I worked with him for 3 months. I stopped working with Cam so that he could do my nutrition.
Mhm.
And then I went back to Cam after and kind of like filled him in, like this is what we did, blah, blah, blah. Or I still checked in with Cam, I think, every other week. I think I checked in with Cam and then told him what he was doing and blah, blah, blah. So he helped, that worked. And then that was middle of 2022. So I've really only had since the middle of no, I think, yeah, the middle of 2022 is since I've been like healed from all of this. So I feel like I pissed away like 2 years of my bodybuilding career with that gut problem. But
Yeah, you see, you say that, and like it might have been one of those things where it feels like the 2 guys in between Tomanek and Michael were like completely and totally unnecessary. But I wonder how much of that shit was like, and maybe that the money that you spent and all that stuff was maybe unnecessary. But like, I wonder how much of that was like inevitable. Like it's sometimes when it comes to the shit that we see with GI maps, it's like, dude, there's nothing you can do here besides time and continue to
yeah,
do this. And like everybody that, especially within the bodybuilding world, because everybody wants to be bodybuilding, everybody wants to train, everybody wants to eat, and unfortunately, those things are only going to make hyperpermeability of the gut worse.
Yeah.
It's only going to make your gut dysbiosis worse. Like, so we're doing all these things, but yet we're trying to fix all these things at the same time, right? And it's like where it's literally, so instead of it taking 6 months, it takes 2 years for us because we're living opposing lifestyles. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I was well aware of that. And I'm the kind of person that like, if someone tells me what to do, I'm doing it exactly to the T. I think for those 2 whole years, I didn't have one single like thing off plan. I was like, I'm going to fix this and I'm going to do whatever it takes to fix this. I'm going to do exactly what you tell me to do. I'm going to try and deload stress and like not train to failure and all of these things. And I would literally just go into the gym and putz around, and it was horrible for my brain.
Yeah.
So that probably, I'm just not the kind of person that can half-ass things. So it was hard for me to half-ass things, and like mentally
purposely half-ass things.
Yeah, mentally being not in a good place about that probably didn't help. But again, like none of these people did anything wrong. It was like,
Of course, yeah.
they each helped in their own way to move me further towards healing myself. So Mark, I felt better after I worked with Mark, but I knew it wasn't all gone. Like I couldn't go eat a cheeseburger and feel okay after that. Anything that I ate that wasn't specifically one of these certain foods would inflame me and like throw my gut out of whack, and like it was horrible. But Matt Cusano is the one that fixed everything in the end. But I think, again, it was that prescription, that rifaximin, that ended up fixing it. And I took another antibiotic too. I forget what it was called, but that was a lot. Taking those antibiotics to begin with is a lot.
Yeah.
Because you end up feeling like crap on those anyways.
Yeah, they're very, very strong. But I'm curious quickly, because I know you got to go soon. But what about I want to know about the transition. Like, what made you transition from figure to wellness? And obviously, I know we're not 100% there yet because of all this shit that's been going on, right?
Yeah.
But like, what made you transition? What was the conversations like? And then what's the thought process like now?
So I did my last pro show in 2021 at the Kentucky Pro, and I got like 12th place, I think.
Was that with Cam?
That was with Cam. Yeah. I feel like I could have been a little bit leaner. That's not his fault. I think we both realized like, hey, you had a parasite. Like that's probably why it was a little bit harder. But I think I've been leaner than I was at that show, but it wasn't too far off, like I was conditioned, but it just wasn't my own standard of what I should be. Again, that wasn't his fault. Like we were like, why isn't this responding? Things like that. And then we realized it was because of the parasite in my gut and shit. But I was backstage and I was just like, it was a Masters Figure Pro show too. So I was one of the youngest people there, and I looked like a baby next to all these women. And I just was backstage and I was like, I really don't want to be this big like as some of these girls are, and I don't want to look like that. And like I like figure what it was. So in my head I'm like, well, like let me see what wellness looks like. And Cam was like, no, like you're not doing wellness, your shape is figure. Yeah, he told me no. Like I think I'd asked him 3 months apart, like 2 or 3 different times. I was like, what do you think about me doing wellness? He's like, no, your figure. Like, look at this, like your figure. There's no doubting it. Like you have a good shape for figure, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I really don't think that's a good idea. Like 3 different times I'd asked him, I was like, are you sure? And then eventually I was just like, no, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing wellness. I'm switching divisions. And he was okay, if you really want to do that, we can.
So did you get him to a point where he's like, I see it now, like it works? Or is
after
like,
I had grown into it, but when I had said, hey, this is what I'm doing, he was like, okay, like we'll do what you want, like I'll make you happy, and like if this is what you really want to do, that's fine. And then again, I looked like I should have been doing bikini at this time. I was 123 pounds. I was small. I was still small from like the whole gut stuff.
I think I'm like picturing the exact picture that like
and I was like, I really like looking at it. I just know my legs grow really fast. And I was like, I know once my gut gets fixed, I'll get back and like everything will respond and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, if I'm going to start to switch divisions, I should do it while I'm like small and have lost all this muscle and try and grow back up from something that's small instead of trying to lose all this tissue, right? So I already didn't have a bunch of tissue because I was small.
Mhm.
But I basically just started shifting into it. I think I had a push day, a pull day, and then I had 3 lower body days still. So I shifted
say,
into
did
that, and I was still like on the fence. And then eventually I went and I was like, I'm going to do 1 upper body day and 3 lower body days. And then my upper body still wasn't shrinking. So I train upper body once every other week now. And sometimes I skip that if I'm like, hey, I don't really need to do this, or I want to train
Wild.
this instead. So I still think I have some upper to lose, but Cam now is like, no, you made a really good decision. Like, this is where you're meant to be, blah, blah, blah. But I still have a lot of size to put on. Like, I never directly trained my glutes when I was doing figure. So I don't have like years of glute training like some of these girls do. I also sound super nasally because I'm allergic to Texas
Yeah.
and allergies
I
are
think
so bad.
everybody's allergic to. I think everybody's allergic to everything this year. I'm in
Oh,
Jersey, and my allergies are worse than they've ever been in my entire life.
I feel like there's pillows just sitting on my eyes all the time. And like I have phlegm in the back of my throat and just nasally. It's disgusting.
I got put on vertigo medicine because I have so much fluid buildup. Yeah, that I'm so dizzy and fucked up all day. Yeah,
Oh my
they literally put
gosh.
me on vertigo medication. Yeah, I kid you
That's
not.
horrible. Did it help?
Yeah, and I'm in Jersey. It has nothing to do with Texas. It's awful. But yeah,
Anyways, yeah, I like it. It's a lot better. I feel way more comfortable in the off season
Yeah, I was gonna
carrying
ask that because,
weight.
like, as a woman, like you, obviously you had that bad rebound. You've been really tiny, all these different things. Like, how different is it, like walking around with like such a big lower body when like you're used to being like a little tiny little thing?
It's so much more comfortable carrying weight in your lower body than it is carrying weight in your upper body or like having it evenly distributed. Like I was so uncomfortable just getting into a sports bra or like putting a shirt on. Like it was so or like wearing normal clothes in my
Yeah,
office. I was like,
because then
ew,
you're
this is,
like,
I feel like huge and my arms were huge and my back was huge. It was just like spilling over any shirt that I wore. And I was like, this isn't fun. So wellness feels more comfortable, and I was like constantly in pain because I was doing back like 2-3
yeah,
times a week, just like I am doing legs, trying to grow my back. And I was just like in pain. My neck hurt, my shoulders hurt, my back hurt. It hurt all the time. And I feel like my legs and my lower body can take more volume and
yeah, for
stress and
sure. Yeah.
everything than my upper body can. And I don't feel like I'm hurting as much now.
that's good.
It'd be an interesting thing to have Cam on and talk to Cam about. But like, I wonder because again, it's one of those things where it's like from. I wonder from your perspective. Did you ever look at the lineups that you'll see on a pro level as far as wellness is concerned, especially at the higher end there, and kind of get that like fuck kind of feeling like I still got, like from a muscularity standpoint in the lower body, like this is, like I think honestly at this point in the game, it is a very especially from what you're talking about being comfortable in the off season and kind of like the look that is required during the that you get to have during the off season. It's almost like it's the preferred route, I think, for a lot. But then again, you start to get into it and like you recognize like how much training does have to change.
Yeah.
You
And
recognize how
like,
much tissue has to be there, not during the off season, which is for a lot of women relatively easy to have a lot of tissue in your lower
yeah,
body during the off season. Not that much, but relatively easy to have more tissue in your lower body. But what you don't recognize is how hard it is to get the tissue. It's going to be there in prep and on stage. And like that's a lot of fucking muscle in your lower body to
that's
produce
why
over
I need
time.
to let it sit and like marinate on my
Yes.
body.
Yeah.
And
Takes
again,
time.
I'm not going on stage and doing my first wellness amateur show. I'm doing my first wellness show as a pro,
Yeah,
standing next to Olympians. And
Right.
it's like, if I'm going to put that on stage, like I want it to be something good. So I'm not competing this year. I didn't compete last year. Like I'm taking the time because again, I'm restructuring my whole physique. I'm losing muscle here. I'm gaining muscle here. Again, I have to let the muscle in my glutes sit and marinate so that it doesn't just get lost when I prep. Um, and I want to put something good on stage when I compete. I don't want it to just be like, oh, like Lianna did her first pro show and wellness and like she got last call outs. I just don't want that to happen. Like I want to win or place good, or like I have high expectations of myself.
Yeah,
So
I have
guys-
another one.
What?
Go ahead, Ruth. No, I was
I
just
was
gonna say,
gonna
I have
ask
another one that's in the, oh, shit, go ahead.
You go,
No,
you go,
no,
you
no,
go.
you go, you go. I'm done.
Okay,
I'm done.
no. I was just gonna ask if you guys have a rough timeline, like based on what Cam is seeing, and obviously, you know, he had Elias. I can't. I'm sorry, Elias. Go through like what, a 5-year off season. Like, do you guys have some sort of like game plan of, like in that regards where he's like, yeah, like 2 more years, 3 more years?
Not really. So a few months ago, I asked him, I was like, hey, like, do you plan on me competing this year? I just want to know, like, because I'll do whatever Cam tells me to. I'm not like, I was just like, hey, like, are we competing this year? Because I want to like plan my life out, basically, you know, like, what can I do this year? Like, if you want me competing the end of the year, like, what, just life, you know? And he was like, I don't know, like, I want to see what you look like next to some pro wellness girls, like, just you standing next to someone that's like a successful pro. And I was supposed to do that when we went to Richmond a few weeks ago or a couple months ago. Alexis Adams was there and I'm friends with her, and I was supposed to like take pictures with her and like be like, hey, this is what I look like standing next to Alexis. But I was super sick. I was like deathly ill, so I couldn't do anything that we went there to do. I was supposed to teach this like posing seminar, and I couldn't end up doing that. So I flew there and I like couldn't hang out with any of our friends or anything. It was really sad. But that was my like kind of chance to like give Cam what he wanted to see. But he was just like, take a picture and like, I want to see how you compare where you need to like grow standing next to someone that's like been successful in the league or like been to Olympia or like placed really high at a pro show, so that we know where we stand. And Alexis is very similar in height to me, so that would have been like a good comparison. She's definitely a lot bigger than me. She's got like a lot of tissue on me for sure. But again, that's just like a kind of reality check to be like, okay, this person's way bigger than you. Like, this is where we need to grow at, kind of thing. But I get that. But I would be even okay if I didn't compete next year too. Like, I'm not in a rush. I just want to do really well. I know I still have like a lot of work to do with posing and everything, but like even that's come a long way. And I've started to like the posing more, where when I started, I was like, I don't really like this, like blah, blah, blah. But I've kind of started to see like things that I like about it more. And because I loved figure posing. That's like my favorite thing about figure. I still coach figure posing. I eventually want to coach wellness posing, but I feel like I can. I just feel like a fraud because I haven't like competed in the division yet. So it's like, do you really trust me that's never done a show in wellness to do your posing? I don't know. But I'll get there eventually. I would like to coach it. I just am not there yet.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Tim?
I have no idea anymore. It wasn't important. Honestly, don't remember.
Okay, I love it. So you did touch on figure posing, which I send all and anyone, because I do bikini and wellness posing, but I do get people asking for figure. I'm like, no, you go to Lianna for that. So yeah, you do a really, really damn good job at that. But I want you to plug the new X and new level.
Yeah, so that's like my baby. That's what I coach lifestyle people online, and then I have online figure posing, or I do that in person too. But my main source of income, or my baby, is the new X and what I do with that. So the new X is a device. It's like this big. It looks like an iPad, but it basically looks like a TENS unit. So I apply the pads to people. It delivers in electrical signal. So it's a direct current and an alternating current. They call it an interactive neuromuscular stimulus, that's what they call the signal of the mix of the two. It retrains your neurological pathway from the brain to the muscle to fire the muscle tissue and reteach your brain how to fire it. So if someone can't connect very well with their biceps or their back or their glutes, I pad the tissue up while they're training, and I reteach the muscle how to fire. So a lot of the people that I work with now, I like will take them through a training session, but I also work with people that have injuries or imbalances, and I kind of do body work with that to open the tissue up by taking them through movement patterns, or like, because the signal lengthens the tissue and then it reteaches it how to contract harder than you can on your own. So we're opening the tissue up, we're reteaching it how to work properly. And I've just been able to help a lot of people like with conditions that they can't really fix at a PT office or things like that. I have a guy now that had a quadruple bypass where they took arteries out of his leg from like his knee down and to like rebuild his heart basically. So I'm helping him get the signal back in his legs to fire properly. I don't know if I said that right. Tim, you made a weird face.
No, it's just gross.
That just
I
sounds
know, like,
scary.
you know, and remember, I'm old, and like I feel like that's gonna be me in like the next like 10 years, and like I don't have that
No,
much time left. Oh,
he like had a big life change and had diabetes, and he doesn't anymore, and he's like off all his medication, but he literally can move his ankle like this much. Like it's very small. He can't like stand on his toes because there's no signal going down there. So I work with him every week to try and get that firing again. We do like remedial exercises like box squats and like step backs, and just to get his ankle and his knees and everything in his glutes and all of that firing again. And he's made like a ton of progress, and he said he can stand
Impressive.
easier and all these things. So that's like the really rewarding stuff. And then I get to work with the bodybuilders. I've worked with a guy that had a stroke to help him get the feeling back on his side of his body that he didn't have before. So it's very life-changing if you get to work with those kind of people. But I love working with my bodybuilders too, and it's kind of it's rewarding, and I like being in person with people and interacting with humans and things like that. So
And
I always
what
wondered those
gym?
things.
Go.
Uh,
I was just
no,
gonna
just
say,
keep cutting
what
me off.
gym
It's
do
cool.
you
Go ahead.
work out of? Oh my God, why do we keep doing it? What
What gym
gym
do you
do
work
you
out of,
work
Lianna?
out of down there
I
in
work out of
Texas?
Destination Dallas in Allen. So I'm there once a week, and then I work out of a gym called Fox Fitness over in Fort Worth. So I drive over to Destination like an hour every week, but I have like a full day of clients when I go over there. So it's good.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to get clients at Destination because there was a guy that used to be there that had a newbie. So a lot of the people that are members there know what the new X is, and they see it and they're like, oh, like I remember this,
flock.
I used to do that and blah, blah, blah. So it's easy to get clients there. Whereas at the gym in Fort Worth, like they're not as serious. Like Destination's a big bodybuilding hub. So it's easy to get clients over there and stuff.
From a bodybuilding perspective, where do you think like the biggest yield is for that type of a piece? Like, where do you think is the best bang for the buck? Like, where do you think it serves the most purpose?
So a lot of bodybuilders just like can't move through the tissue properly. Or they have like tissue that's stuck. I don't know. I can look at guys on stage and be like, that's stuck, and it can't open
Yeah.
properly. And that's what the machine does. Like I could pad up that really easily and take someone through movement patterns and just release that tissue and make it move better. So bodybuilding isn't just how big you are, it's how the muscle looks when it moves too. So you can see the difference between guys on stage where like they do a back double and they can like come down and open everything up properly, and then you can see the guys have like this much range of motion. It's like this, and like, that's all they can do, as opposed to the
David
guys that can
Cowell.
come
I have a
back and
client.
like open everything up properly. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest application that I see on stage, is getting the muscle to move properly. And then I just have so many people that I work with that are like, oh, like my training's so much better now after we hit this muscle group. I can like feel it. I can connect with it more. It contracts harder than it used to before we did that session. I can get it to open up all the way or lengthen. And you're like creating space within the tissue to grow and facilitate that muscle
I
activation.
also wonder, like, and it's hard. Like, I don't know if you'd be able to, and I mean this sincerely too. Like, not like in any type of like obviously like disrespectful way or anything like that. But like, I don't know if you'd actually be able to comprehend. Like, for me, being 39, I'm old as fuck, right? Like, and doing it for as long as I have. Seriously, I'm almost like at a point where like I wonder if that is a tool that would allow me to get the same. You get to a point, honestly, when you've been doing it long enough, where it's almost like you kind of like, you almost want to cry a little bit because like you can't train the way that you used to anymore. You guys are laughing at me. I'm dead serious right now. I'm having a moment. All right. I want some sincerity out of you guys. Like you legitimately can't train the way you want to anymore. Like I went to the gym the other day and literally like, I don't even want to tell you the weight that I put on hack squat, and my knees hurt so, my one knee, my left knee hurts so fucking bad that it's like, I can't get the workout that I want to get. Like, it's not even a matter of like, oh, I want to train hard. It's like at a certain point, it's just like, dude, I want to be able to feel like I'm actually working out and not feel all this inflammation in my knee.
When
Okay.
you're training with the new X, you don't need as much load. So that's kind of the benefit of it. You're activating like 95% of the muscle tissue, but I can give you that 95% muscle activation with no weight on the bar, or like
Well, that's
no.
what I'm saying. Because there's days where you go in when you, and I've talked to other people that are my age, and this is consistent across the board. There's days when you go in where like you can hop on the leg extension and you start doing extensions with lower weight, and you can have you like the connection is there, and you feel it, and you get a pump before you start getting enough pain in the knee, and everything is okay. You know, a hack squat, fucking 6 plate, like everything is okay on that day because you have so much in the quad and you have so much less in the knee that it's fine. And then I have days like the other day when I go in and it's like, I can't, it hurts the knee from the very, very start. And like, I can't not feel that inflammation to where I can get any connection to the quad. You know what I mean? So in my mind, it's like having something like that where it's like, hey, dude, don't do any weight, where you're just going to pulse it. And I've used the newbie before. The newbie, was that what it was? The green.
So they're similar. The newbie delivers a higher frequency, so it basically like goes faster than the new X does. But the only way to describe this is that the new X is smoother. So the newbie uses 8 pads, and those 8 pads on you don't feel like they grab as much tissue as the new X's 4 pads do. So it covers more surface area, it feels like, and it grabs the tissue better, whereas the newbie kind of feels like pinpoints of the muscle tissue being grabbed, and the new X feels like the whole tissue is being grabbed all at once, even with
I mean,
less.
I've never used your device, but I can kind of like get what you're saying just by like understanding the way that the newbie felt. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't really like, and I didn't get a chance. My problem was there wasn't anybody around here. But you guys are like 2 hours away from me or whatever, or 2.5 hours, something like that, when you were here. But like there wasn't anybody ever in this area for me that I would trust with that from a bodybuilding perspective.
And a
You know
lot
what I
of
mean? Like they
people
might
that
know what they're
have,
doing from a recovery or whatever.
yeah, a lot of people that have devices, it's kind of just like, is it the gun or is it the person shooting the gun? It's like,
Yeah, right.
people that have these devices, some of them don't know what they're doing. Some of them use it improperly. Some of them just fry people's nervous systems and like don't worry about like their recovery the next day. With the newbie, you can actually like give someone rhabdo. That's how intense and high the frequency is from that. And there's been people that have done that, and that's why that machine's not approved by the FDA and the new X is. So there's just, it's kind of like user error, and there's people that have a bad taste in their mouth with the actual machine or the type of device like the new X or the newbie. But it's really just the person operating it like fried them, and like you can actually make the muscle tissue atrophy if you overuse it because it can't recover at a certain point. Like if you're using it so much, you're just like, it's like if you were to go hard training legs every single solitary day, you'd like never give your body the chance to recover, and you'd start losing muscle tissue. It's the same thought process.
I think back to the people that were originally on Instagram kind of promoting the use of Newbie Fit too, and the way that they did it. And like now in my mind, I'm like, dude, that makes total sense.
Yeah. So
about it like that. So maybe it
there's a
doesn't
lot of
catch
people
on
that have
because of the user error.
a bad taste in their mouth with it, but that's why. And it's, I try to explain that. And every person that works with me says something along the lines of, the machine's great, but it's what you bring to the machine and like your cues and things like that that help you make this a good session or make it good for me. Because I don't go into a session and just like pad people up. I use the new X as an opportunity for me to work with high level athletes and correct their form and give them cues that they can take into their training. Like I said, that the background that MI40 gave me kind of facilitated this, like, what's it called? I'm just really big into like exercise execution. Like I could take the person that thinks they're really good at everything and make them feel a exercise more than they could before. And I like take pride in that. But that's what I try to bring to every session that I have with a client on the new X2, is that plus the activation from just what the new X delivers to.
I love it. I love it. So I'll link below your New Level Instagram, but where can the people find you?
I'm on Instagram too. It's Lianna MC_ IFBB Pro. I want to change that. I might just change it to my regular name. I feel like when I turned pro, it was like cool to have IFBB Pro in your name, and now I just like it's too much.
Yeah. Well, regardless, I will link both Instagrams below. Do you have anything else you want to add, or Tim, anything else you want to add?
Good.
You want to sign off, Kane? Come here.
I want to say goodbye to Kane.
Say bye.
Alrighty, Lianna, thank you so very much for chatting with us. I think this was a great conversation. Thank you everyone for listening. Make sure to reach out to Lianna. She's amazing. And we'll catch you guys next week.